Think about it. Night after night, Batman goes out, trying to stop crime, trying to prevent evil, and trying to help the innocent. Psychologically, Batman is a mess. He is a man who suffers so much that he decides to dress like a bat in order to avenge what was done to him and to achieve justice for others. Personally, he has no life, for his whole life is geared towards his existence as the Dark Knight. Indeed, his only purpose is to be the Bat, to protect, to save, and to avenge. And when it comes to morality, he has his unbreakable moral rule. He won't kill anyone, not even someone like the Joker.
Well, I would say that Batman has a much more substantial moral foundation than just don't murder people. And Batman is definitely psychologically scarred by his past. I mean, his parents were killed right in front of him. Don't you think that'd fuck you up too? This is also something that both the Joker and Batman share, to differing degrees. They are both psychologically damaged, but how they handle that psychological damage is what differentiates them. Bruce Wayne is definitely a mask for Batman. And I mean, we could debate on how psychologically healthy that is for the actual person of Bruce Wayne, but we really don't need to get into that here. And there's no real point in making this distinction.
Yet a problem now arises, because as Richard Dawkins and many other atheistic naturalists, like Alex Rosenberg and Joel Marks, have told us, on atheism there exists no objective or ultimate purpose in life, nor is there any good or evil, or any absolute morality. Morality in an absolute or objective sense does not exist given atheism.
Well, let's be clear here. You're talking about absolute morality, but you're conflating it with objective morality. I think that there's a way that you could redefine things to get objective morality, but at the heart of everything, it's all subjective. So no, absolute morality doesn't exist, but that's because we're restricted by our own experiences. Morality is an emergent property of sentient and semi-sentient beings. We don't have absolute morality, we just have morality. We all have our own subjective moral foundation with which to judge actions as good, bad, right, and wrong.
And even if it did, on atheistic naturalism, who cares? Nothing, ultimately, is going to happen to you for any pain, suffering, or evil that you cause. There is no afterlife to punish you for your immoral actions.
Funny that you should mention this, because the Christian theology actually doesn't have God punishing people for the immoral actions that they commit during this life. The only punishment that occurs after you die is whether or not you get sent to hell. And you don't get there by being an immoral person. You get there by not believing in Jesus as the only way to heaven. So even on your own worldview, people are not getting punished for their immoral actions. This is what makes Batman's position more rational than a theistic one that's based on this punishment after you die. Batman seeks justice in the only way that we can actually see justice being served. He makes that happen. He doesn't leave it up to God.
And while society may catch you and punish you for your crimes, it's also true that it might not. Furthermore, you might not even care about such punishment. So, even the threat of facing punishment in this life is a weak deterrent to immorality and evil.
And you think your God's a deterrent? Clergy, pastors, and priests violate young children all the time, and all the time your God forgives them. You see, because they believe in Jesus and presumably they ask for forgiveness of their sins, they are in fact not punished in the afterlife for the immoral actions that they commit during this life. Religious people are always doing immoral and horrible things, and your hell or God's judgment isn't a deterrent. So I don't know why you're trying to make it out like real-world punishment isn't sufficient. Kind of seems like your brand of punishment is insufficient as well.
Moreover, on the atheistic view, human beings are fundamentally just meat machines. We are just particles in motion, living in a universe that neither knows nor cares about us, nor does it know or care about our pains or our purposes. At most, in this uncaring cosmos, we live for our own subjective purposes and for our own fleeting personal pleasures, if we even live for those.
I was with you up until the fleeting personal pleasures. Sure, some people out there live their life for only themselves without thinking about others. That's not necessarily wrong, but it can be very bad. boiling us down to just meat machines, is a poor attempt to demean the atheist position that we're nothing special in this universe. I mean, we're special because we're alive, and most things in this universe are not alive. We aren't special in that the universe doesn't revolve around us or our issues. Reality doesn't give a fuck about your issues, but that's not a bad thing. We do live out our own subjective purpose in life, and that's okay. Especially when that purpose is just solely believing in Jesus.
So, in such a universe, who really cares if some meat machines feel pain and are hurt and some aren't? Ultimately, it does not matter. Of course, these are brutal and harsh ideas, but if atheism is reality, then these ideas are also true, regardless of how harsh they may be.
What fucking reality do you live in? Because that exactly describes the reality that we live in. Do you live in some kind of alternate reality where everybody cares about the exact same shit that you care about? Right now, I'm sure that you could think of an innumerable amount of other people's pain that you just simply don't care about. You would be using your own subjective moral foundation to determine whether or not you cared about that person's pain. There are also tons of situations out there that you can't possibly fathom that you don't exactly care about right now, but that's probably because you don't know about them. So here's a question. If God is real and he intimately cares about our issues and our pain, then why does he just sit back and watch horrible shit happen? In this particular worldview, from 1939 to 2001, God allowed 16 sex rings to exist in Victoria, Australia. He also sat back and watched Ariel Castro kidnap 3 girls, keep them as sex slaves for 10 years, only to be found by somebody that was just on the street after one of the girls had escaped. God couldn't get out of his lazy boy and do some shit about that? I mean, that's some God you got there. I mean, he can damn a guy to hell for simply not believing in Jesus, but he can't lift a finger to help out 3 girls who had been kidnapped for 10 years being used as sex slaves that entire time.
But now consider the Joker, especially after thinking about both Batman as well as the hard truths about atheism mentioned above. Many people think that the Joker is insane, but he's not. Not really. He's not even a psychopath.
I'm not entirely sure how you arrived at this conclusion. Psychopathy is a mental disorder. That shit doesn't just go away because you don't believe in a God. He's an insane psychopath regardless of a God existing.